Hi there. As you can see, I've got some peaches here. So I thought I would make some peach jam. I have all my jam equipment sort of out and ready to go, as I was just making some blueberry jam as well. So I just thought I'd show you quickly what I do to prep the peaches before I cut them up and make jam with them. So I want to take the skin off of the peaches, and to make that very easy, I'm just going to score them over the top with a little X so that you've got a little corner to peel if you need it. And then I've got over here a pot of boiling water. So I'm just going to pop them into the boiling water for no more than 60 seconds. And that will loosen the skin around the outside so that I can peel it. But once I've done this, the less than 60 seconds in the water, I've also got, this is just some ice water here, so that it stops the cooking process and that helps release the peel from the outside. So I'm going to pop them in there for no more than 60 seconds, and then we'll put them into the ice water, and then I'll show you how easy it is to peel them. Okay, so they've been in there for 60 seconds. And we're just going to pop each one of them into the ice water, and then we can peel them. If you have smaller peaches, they'll probably only take sort of 30 seconds to boil so that you can peel them easily. These are quite large peaches, so the 60 seconds seems to work a little bit better. Go. So I'm just going to let those cool off so that I can handle them again, and then I'll come back and show you how to peel them. Okay, so they've cooled down a little bit so that I can peel them. Now you can already see with this one that the skin is coming off really easily, so you might not even need to use a little paring knife to peel it. You might be able to just like this one. It's just coming off, so just peeling it by hand works. If you do get stuck, then you can coax it off with the paring knife. There we go. And so then that's all you need to do to take the skin off your peaches. So I've got a dozen large peaches here. I'm going to go ahead and take off all of the skin. And I'm also going to chop them up. So you want to take the pit out of them. So I just, now be careful because they are much slipperier when you have the skin off of them. So without cutting yourself like that, you just want to cut them into pieces. Now this one's not working obviously, so you can just literally pop your knife in like that and pull off chunks like this, and then you're going to cut this up into little manageable chunks just like that. So that's what we're going to start the jam recipe with. If you've got peaches that aren't so stuck to the pit, it obviously makes this a lot easier. But as you can see, it's messy, but they all come off in the end. And I mean, you're going to be chopping up your peaches, crushing them, and making them into a jam anyway. So you're not looking for you don't need the perfect pieces or anything like that. Just be careful because they are a lot slipperier now when you're handling them. And yeah, so that's how you get your peaches ready. So that's off, and then yeah, just cut this up into chunks. Nothing fancy. As I said, we're just going to boil them and make jam out of them anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and do that with all of my peaches, and then I'll come back to show you how I make the jam part. Okay, so before I start continuing with the jam, I just wanted to show you, this is my canner, and I've got all of my jars. So I've done 12 half-pint jars, and they're all in there. Now normally I wouldn't do more than 10 at a time, but I think that this is going to make more than 10. So I'm heating them all anyway. I'm going to sterilize them all anyway. If I don't use them all, at least I've got them if that's the case. So I've got this sort of 3/4 full of water, and I've got it on a medium heat. So those will come to a simmer, and I'm just going to leave them in there until I'm ready to use them, so they're nice and hot to put the hot jam into. Down here I have my peaches. So this is 12. They were rather large peaches that have been cut up. I've added lemon juice so that they wouldn't go brown while I was chopping them up, and that was the juice of 2 sort of good medium-sized to large lemons. And then in the back here I've got some hot water. Now this is just hot water from the tap, and I've washed my lids and I put them in there. Now I'm using ball jars and lids, and I was having a read on their website, and the lids that they use, the rubber around the outside, doesn't need to be warmed anymore. So basically you could just wash these and then put them straight on top of the jars and then process your jars. The older lids that they used to do, the rubber around the top is what needed to be warmed, which is why you would put them in like warm to hot but not boiling water, was to sort of soften that to allow for a better seal. But the lids that they make now don't need that. But I'm still going to keep them in there. They're just handy, and they're just ready to go. And then I can also use this water to top up my water bath if I need to. Right, so I've got my peaches all peeled and cut up in here. I'm going to use a potato masher and give them a quick little squash. And then I'm going to measure how many I actually have. If you prefer larger chunks of peaches in your jam, by all means don't squash them. It's entirely up to you. You can cut them up into smaller pieces and leave the little pieces rather than squashing them, but this is what I like to do. And I am not going to squish them to an entire pulp. I am going to leave some large chunks in there, and that's why I'm not doing it in sort of one layer at a time. I want some bigger chunks as well, but I also want some of it sort of quite squashed up as well. Okay, so I'm happy with how much I think that has broken up. There we go. So now I'm going to measure that to see how many cups I have, and that will determine how much sugar and pectin I need to add to my jam. So let me measure that and I'll come back. Okay, so I've measured out my prepared fruit, and I have 7 cups of fresh peaches. And so to that, I am going to add 8 tablespoons of pectin, and then we're going to bring that to a boil. And then I'm going to add in 5.5 cups of sugar and bring it back to a boil. So let me go ahead and add in my pectin. Now 8 tablespoons does seem like a lot, but this is a lot of peaches. 1, 2, 8. Alright, so that is my 8 tablespoons of pectin. So I'm going to stir that in. So with the 7 cups of peaches, this is likely to make about 10 jars. So that should be right on the threshold. There's definitely enough pectin in here to make them set, so I'm not considering this too large a batch at all. Now that I've stirred in all my pectin, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my heat to sort of a medium-high heat. And I'm going to keep stirring while this comes to a boil. Okay, so my peaches have come to a boil, I'm going to add in my 5½ cups of sugar all at once. There we go. And then I'm going to stir that to dissolve the sugar. And then once all of the sugar is dissolved, we're going to bring it to a hard boil, which means that when you stir it, it can't be stirred down. The boil doesn't go away. And once it hits that point, we're going to boil it for 1 minute and then turn off the heat and put the peaches into the jars. So let me keep stirring. Okay, so as I'm dissolving the sugar, you'll probably notice, and I noticed, that there's this sort of layer of foam on the top of the peaches. Now, once it starts boiling, that's going to stay, and it'll be a little bit easier to scrape off. So I'm just going to use a metal spoon and skim off the top, taking off that sort of foam that you see. Now, there's nothing wrong with the flavor of the foam. It tastes just like the jam, but it will stay looking sort of that white, and it'll have that sort of bubbly, airy consistency in your jam. And most people don't like that, or if you're trying to preserve for a fair or anything like that, then obviously you need to take that off so your jam is sort of as clear as you can get it, not with having all the sort of foam mixed in with it. But as I'm stirring, I can feel on the bottom of the pan now that the sugar's all dissolved. There's no grainy sugar sound. So we're just going to bring this then to a nice rapid boil. So I've got it on a high heat. And I just want to make sure it doesn't stick as we're getting it to a boil. So I'm going to keep stirring it a little bit. Okay, so my jam is just starting to come to a boil now. I'm not going to start timing my minute until it's at a very hard boil, but I am going to skim off some of the foam off the top. And that's just like this, pulling it off. If you're just skimming the foam off the top, you obviously want to leave all your jam in the pot. Okay, I'm going to give it another stir just to make sure it's not sticking on the bottom. Okay, I'm now happy with that boil, so I'm going to time it for 1 minute. And while I'm doing the 1 minute of a hard boil, I'm going to keep skimming off the foam from the top. Okay, so that's been my 1 minute hard boil. So I'm going to turn the heat off and scrape off some more of this foam. Okay, so I'm happy with that, and I'll set up my little station for putting that into the jars. Giving it this little bit of time to cool. I'll give it one more little stir, and what that will do is distribute the few peach chunks that I have a little bit more, because as you can probably see, they sort of float to the top. And if you, again, it won't change the flavor of the jam at all, but if you want little jars that have sort of your fruit dispersed through it, then if you let it sit for just a minute to cool, they'll sort of, you can stir them back in and they'll sink just a little bit and then stay distributed through the jars a bit better. So let me get set up and then I'll come back and we'll put these into jars. Okay, so I've got my little station set up. So those are my peaches that we just made. I've got the lids that you can just see off the corner of the screen there. I've got my ladle for ladling my peaches into the jars, and I've got my jar lifting tongs so that I can get the jars into and out of the water bath. And I've also got my little magnet tool which picks up the lids that are in the water over there. Not that it's really hot water, but it's easier to grab them that way. And then I've got my little bands for putting onto the top. And then the canner, you can see the jars. I'm just about to take the jars out, and I'll take them out one by one as I fill them with the jam, and then they go back in to be processed after that. So, hot jar, ladle goes in, or the funnel goes in the top. Now, as I said, I'm going to give this just a quick little stir to distribute our peaches a little bit better through the jam. There we go. Move that out of the way. And, of course, I need a ladle. So, there we go. So we'll just ladle some of our nice hot peaches into the jar. Hot jar, hot peaches. And I want to fill it so that it is 1/4 of an inch from the top. And with these jars, that's a little full. So I'm just going to grab a spoon. And take a little bit of that out. So you want to leave 1/4 of an inch. You can get measuring tools. To me, it sort of looks like it's kind of halfway, I would say, between where that ridge is and where the top is. So that's sort of your 1/4 of an inch. Kind of, yeah, that looks good. So they do have little tools if you are worried about making sure. That just allows it to seal properly. And so now with this, I've made a little bit of a mess. So I just need to get a quick cloth to clean off the rim so when I put the lid on, it seals properly. Okay, so this is just a clean, damp cloth, and I'm just going to wipe it around the top. So burning myself. Very hot. Just to make sure that you get a good seal, and then just carefully, very hot around there as well. And then I'm going to grab one of my lids. There we go. And then gently set that on top. And then we put our band on the top. And again, just finger tight. So that's tight enough. And then we'll be able to process this. So I'll go ahead and fill the rest of my jars. And then we'll process them afterwards. Okay, so I did guess right. This batch of jam made 10 jars, half pint jars of jam. So now I'm just going to process them in my canner, which is just there. And so all I'm going to do is pop these onto the rack that's in there. I'm going to lower the rack in, bring it to a boil, and once it starts boiling, I'm going to boil them and process them for 10 minutes. And then I'm going to turn off the heat and just lift them out like this and let them sit for 5 minutes. And then you just need to leave them for about 12 to 24 hours to seal. And you'll hear little pops as that happens. And then you know that your jars have sealed properly. So let me get them in the water bath, we'll process them, and then I'll show you once they come out. Okay, so they've been processing for 10 minutes, and I've just lifted them. I'm just going to let them sit like that for 5 minutes before I take them all the way out. And I just wanted to show you, because they're popping and sealing as they're just sat like this, and that's what they're meant to do over the next 12 to 24 hours, that you need to leave them to make sure that they do that and seal properly. So I don't know if you just heard that, but that was one popping and sealing. So I've already heard about 6 or 7 little pops like that. And that is what you're listening for each of the jars to seal. So it's quite fun to listen to. So I'm going to leave these for another sort of 3 minutes, and then I'll pop them. Oh, there's another one. I'll pop them out onto the onto just a tea towel, and I'll show you what that looks like. Okay, so those are all of my jam jars processed. Now they just need to sit like this for 12 to 24 hours. And once that's finished, then you can just press down on the top of the disc. Don't do that before you're sort of at least 12 hours. And you just want to make sure that it doesn't move up and down. If it doesn't, then they've sealed properly. If it does, then it hasn't sealed properly. The jam is still good, so you can pop that one into the fridge and use that as the first one for you to eat. If there are a few that haven't done that, then you can reprocess them, but you'll need to put new lids on the top of them so that they seal properly again. Once you've used one of the lids, you need to use a new one the next time. So if there's only maybe 1 or 2 or 1, then just put it in the fridge and eat it. The jam is still fine. It's just the seal that you need if you want to keep these for about a year. So now that they've been processed for 10 minutes, if the seal is good, then they'll last for about a year or so. You just want to keep them in a cool, dry, dark place. Now you also notice that some of the bands, so like that one, is still loose. You just leave them alone. Once they're sealed properly, you don't actually need to even store them with the bands on them. It's just the lid that's sealed properly, so you can even take the bands off if you want. But anyway, so that is your peach jam. I hope you enjoyed my video. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy it, please do give me a thumbs up. If you've got any questions, post those in the comments below. I'll pop the recipe and method that I used down there as well. And please subscribe to see what else I'm up to. Thanks again.